The ceasefire is only putting an end to the current clash. But why did the clash happen? Nationalism does not always cause conflict unless politicians see it fit to use it in that context. You see, I don't see a way out of not going to the ICJ here.
This isn't the first time Cambodia and Thailand have clashed. Why do these clashes keep happening? Is it only about the border or does it something deeper? Today, let's break it down with Dr. Deth Sok Udom, the Professor of International Relations at Paragon International University and the author of this book, A History of Cambodia-Thailand Diplomatic Relations, 1950 to 2020. Greetings, Dr.
Greetings,
Udom.
good afternoon.
How are you?
Good, thank you. How about you?
How are you feeling these last few days?
Of course, it's been a very busy week as a scholar on Cambodia-Thai relations, so I received some questions regarding the issue, but of course that is nothing compared to the sacrifice of our soldiers at the front line, the high numbers of volunteers that are helping with humanitarian costs.
Yes. So today I want to have like a casual conversation with you. So please speak and maybe use as simple terms as possible for our wide range of audience to understand and keep up with what is happening not only now but what has happening in the past as well. Okay. The ceasefire now is holding following the outcomes of the Malaysia's peace talk on July 28. However, on July 29, there's still accusation from Thai government saying Cambodia is violating the truth, and Cambodia side is denying the accusations. There's tension still going on. What are the next steps for Cambodia and Thailand to make sure that the ceasefire holds and leading to a lasting peace?
Thank you, Janda, for the question. And you asked me to use simple terms. I'll try to be as, to simplify the matter as much as I can. Of course, it's a very complicated issue, but feel free to ask me to elaborate if I'm not clear on any points. The word ceasefire in English simply means you stop fighting. It's not peace yet, right? So ceasefire is generally imposed or agreed upon by both parties or with third parties' involvement, but it's only a temporary solution. And as you rightly pointed out, that even with the implementation of the ceasefire, there are still accusations, and the Defense Ministry of Cambodia has already responded. I think it's a good thing right now that we have international observers, because those are third parties that have that can be considered impartial. They are not supposed to take side anyway. The fact that we have international news reporter on the ground monitoring the situation, this gives us more credibility in our argument on the Cambodian side that it's not Cambodia that wants war. So we've seen, for example, reports from channels New Asia that reporter on the ground does confirm that there has not been exchange of fire after the implementation of the ceasefire. But again, any ceasefire in conflicts like this can be fragile. It can be broken if there are no honest political will to stop the conflict. We can only hope that this time around, both sides do want to pursue peace, but in the event that one of the sides does not, take it seriously, then conflicts could erupt any time. For conflicts like this to be long-lasting, we have to look at the root cause also, right? The ceasefire is only putting an end to the current clash. But why did the clash happen?
Yes.
And from Cambodian side, as we have always reiterated, that it's not in Cambodia's position as a country, as a political elite, or as a people in general to want this war, right? This kind of war will put Cambodia, which is a much smaller country, both militarily, both economically, to be in a very vulnerable position. So it's not in Cambodia's interest to be engaging in this war. So Cambodians, regardless of our political walk of life, the sectors we work in have been, or even Cambodians living in Cambodia or Cambodian diaspora, have been united on this because it just makes sense to us, right? I have written elsewhere that for this conflict to go away, we have to actually look at the root cause of it, and we have to address the problem both in short term, medium terms, and long term. For me, of course, the ceasefire is the immediate solution to it, but we need to be able to sit down together as both countries to discuss certain agreements that can allow us to return back to normalcy, including the full opening of the borders, which the Thai side had unilaterally started to close, the resumption of trade. It wasn't in Cambodia's interest to actually restrict the trade anyway, but this was a measure in response to Thailand's inconsistent approach when it comes to the border issue. And when trade disruption happened, it affects both sides. Nobody is winning from this actually. It's just a matter of how much. And I believe that the Thai side also has come to realize that it's also an economic loss for them. As two neighboring countries, there is no reason for us to engage in long trade war or anything like that. And I don't think the Cambodian administration wishes for this to happen anyway. But this is medium solution, right? And then coming to the long-term solution, which is a very sticky point when it comes to Cambodia-Thailand conflict, which is the disagreement over the maps and the unwillingness of Thai side, regardless of which factions they come from, whether it's civilian, whether it's opposition party, to not be willing to go to the ICJ because it would be a political suicide for Thai side. Whereas for Cambodia, I think majority of Cambodians think that if we go to the ICJ, we would win. Personally, I'm not sure if that's the case, but for me, again, the ICJ just makes sense because when you have a dispute between two parties, and if the bilateral mechanism doesn't work, then a third party, an international organization like the ICJ would hopefully give an impartial decision. And even if that decision is not satisfying both sides completely, but it does give the room for governments to tell their people that, look, if the ICJ does tell us to move out of this place or divide the border according to this line or whatever, we have to abide by that decision. Even if sometimes maybe that decision does not satisfy us completely, right? But it gives an exit for both parties to disengage militarily and at least focus on the development of both nations.
Yeah. Before I go into the root cause, you already mentioned some solutions already. I was planning to ask that. Actually, I read your book and the case in 2011, very similar case that accused each other who attacked first, and then there's ASEAN mediations coming, but it mentioned to be inefficient. What was the case there, and do you see it happening now?
There's a slight difference this time. So to give context a little bit, yes, when we had clashes between 2008 and 2011, we did go to ASEAN. ASEAN at the time was not able to mediate the conflict respectively because one of the sides did not respect the decision. And so this is the reason why this time around, when the conflict happened again, Cambodia went right away announced our decision to go to the ICJ because we are fearful that the same problem would happen in that if you don't go to the ICJ, if you're only trying to work out in the regional mechanism, and if the organization repeats its same inefficiency or ineffectiveness, then the problem will be prolonged. That's why, again, we went straight to the ICJ. But does not mean that ASEAN has no role whatsoever. We can see from this ceasefire that this is the first step. And at the very least, ASEAN can serve as the regional representation or representative of the UN. Suppose, for example, let's say clashes happen again, the UN will probably not do this case alone. It will still have to go through ASEAN. It will mandate ASEAN as a regional organization to at least serve as observers, as organization on the ground, providing political reports or fact-checking reports to let's say United Nations Security Council, which has more let's say military strength, because ASEAN is not it is not a military organization that can enforce decisions, but the UN Security Council can.
Thank you, Dr. Udom, for a very elaborate answer. I want to look back a little bit into the decades of diplomatic relations between Thailand and Cambodia. What has happened that led us till now? Can you give like a summary of the key highlights?
Sure. So we're now in the post-Cold War era, but when you look at the Cold War era, Cambodia-Thailand relations have shifted and also was influenced by the Cold War politics. And for those who don't know what the Cold War is, it was a major conflict between two powers, superpowers, one led by the United States, the other one by the Soviet Union, and you have countries in the middle. During the 1950s and 60s, conflict was already happening, and it centered around the border area and the Previer conflict, right? And then after 1962, when the ICJ ruled that the Previer temple belonged to Cambodia, then things calmed down a bit, but does not mean that there was no diplomatic problem, because it still continued until the end of the 1960s. But it wasn't just about border issues, and it was not purely between Cambodia and Thailand. If you look at what I wrote in my book, my argument is always that Cambodia-Thai diplomatic relation is complicated by the fact that there are so many factions. There is no single Cambodia versus Thailand as we tend to view the case. There had always some different factions in the background. What is probably different in this current conflict is that it's becoming somewhat more, on the Cambodian side, quite united. And although you have opposition politicians voicing different lines of argument, but overall we see a very unified position on Cambodia. On the Thai side, the same, although there are some different levels of nationalism. On Thai side, there are some more progressive, for example, the former leader of the Move Forward's party. He does not necessarily endorse the idea that the Thai military should be heavily involved in civilian issues and border issues, and it's causing damage to Thai economy, etc. Right? Mm-hmm. So even some Cambodians now on the internet, you see that they're supporting his position in that he should be the future leader of Thailand. Mm. But if I have to summarize the current conflict, it has a lot to do with the Thai political dynamics also, because we do see the Thai military attempting to reassert itself into Thai domestic politics, and because of the fragility of the Thai civilian politics as well, it's creating impact into this border. And Cambodia, as I have always said, I used that term also back in 2008, is that Cambodia has sort of become a hostage to this Thai civilian and factional politics.
I see. When talking about history, I want to touch a little bit on the Franco-Siamese Treaty 1904-1907, which also formed the basis of the border conflict, use of different maps. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. So we have to understand the Siamese psyche. Before the French arrival, Siam was already sort of a mini empire in mainland Southeast Asia. They controlled certain parts. They at least had some influence on Cambodian western part, on some parts of Laos and even some parts of Malaysia today, right? But as the colonial powers were establishing their presence here. The French were in Indochina, the British were in India, in Myanmar and Malaysia. Thailand found itself sort of shrinking compared to what they used to own in the 17th, 18th century. And to be able to preserve themselves and not be colonized, they had to give up some territories. Give up, from their point of view, it's give up territory. But those territories were, in fact, for example, Cambodian. And so the 1904-1907 treaty allowed for the French and the Siamese to exchange some territories and establish some sort of border, and allowed Siam to be independent as a buffer zone between the British control in Myanmar and India and the French control in Indochina. And as part of that treaty, provinces like Battambang, Preah and Siem Reap were given to Cambodia, while Trat was given to Thailand. The 1907 agreement mentioned something about the watershed, that the boundary is supposed to be drawn by the watershed of the mountains, natural barrier. And attached to that treaty, there was a map that was drawn by the French. The Siamese looked at it and agreed upon it. But a few decades later, the nationalism in Thailand now pushed for this narrative that, well, the map and the treaty were forced upon us. We did not have the capacity to understand it at the time, but if we follow the watershed boundary, Preah should have been on Thai side. That was the argument, and that was the argument also used in the ICJ. But the ICJ ruling in 1962 simply argued that, well, after many decades, you actually accepted that map, and the court ruled that the territory and the treaty is in favor of Cambodia. And that's the problem, which is Thailand has not been able to accept that and saw that as a miscarriage of justice, and that the map, the treaty and everything was forced upon Thailand during colonial period, and Thailand should not accept that. And they want to use a different map, which, but then it begs the question of if you don't accept this kind of thing, then the entire boundary of Southeast Asia would be problematic, because most of the boundaries we see today are drawn during colonial map. And if we don't accept this and move on, there is no prospect for peace.
Yeah. So beside the map problem, which is the base of this border conflicts between the two countries, do you see any other deeper root cause?
My argument again in the book is that conflicts happen if there is nationalism on both sides, right? But my argument is that nationalism does not always cause conflict unless politicians see it fit to use it in that context. You see, because if we say that conflicts happen because of nationalism, we would expect it to happen all the time. But when you examine the relations for 70, 80 years, it doesn't always happen. It happens only when politicians see fit that they can use it to serve their own interest.
Actually, the topic of nationalism, I think we can see it has a really powerful power in this time, 2025, because the use of social media. What's the role of media in this current conflicts?
To be honest, I'm also frustrated to see news and misinformation on both sides. Sometimes it happens. Media is supposed to play a role that reports things that are factual and not add fuel to the fire in conflict. And I have to admit that I don't think I'm being biased here, but I feel that majority of our Cambodian media outlets have been very responsible. The problem is probably with some social media users who, without verifying facts, who sometimes, of course it's happening a lot on Thai side already, so I'm not going to, everyone kind of sees it, but for the Cambodian side, it's also sometimes whether intentionally or unintentionally, but they can circulate, fake news or AI images that actually is not factual, but does not ultimately serve the interest of Cambodia. Because if we as a country claim that we are the victim of this conflict, then we have to also preserve our integrity. Everything we say must be truthful. If we circulate fake news and AI images that actually can be described by the other side that, look, you are spreading fake news, then it only reduces our credibility, it hurts our image, and to the outside world, they might just simply look at this issue and say, well, both sides are not innocent, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm totally against the idea of creating AI images, videos that may be true, trying to speak some argument, but by, let's say, creating a video that shows like a international media reporter reporting on things, but actually is AI created, that is ultimately not, I think, not ethical. It's not, although it's meant to help Cambodia's position, but I think in the overall scheme of things, it's not helpful.
Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out. I think it's a really important, and as me, one of the content creator, I do see there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation happening during this conflicts. I think this will be one of the last questions. You have already mentioned some solutions already at the beginning. I want to focus more on long-term solutions. Can you maybe summarize what you already said, or maybe elaborate a bit more on long-term solutions to make sure we have a lasting peace together?
Okay, thank you. So for me, I think again, I would lay out a roadmap. I would suggest this roadmap to both parties and the international community to consider if they really want peace for Cambodia. Again, the ceasefire should be continued and implemented closely and should be observed to ensure that neither side can deviate from it. And if they do, what kind of consequences, they should face some diplomatic consequences. Second is, I believe in both the bilateral discussion for some technical issues, because bilateral discussion at least allows for people, when people sit down on the same table, at least there are things they can exchange, even if it sometimes disagreement, but it's better to sit down on the same table than airing it through media and things like that, because people, when they're able to sit down, they can resolve some issues there. But those are only short term and medium term. So the longer term would be to anything we can discuss, let's say technically, in terms of where we can already agree upon in terms of boundary demarcation, we can continue that. But areas that we don't agree, we will have to. I don't see a way out of not going to the ICJ here. And again, the ideal scenario would be Thailand accepting to go to ICJ together. The second scenario would be that Thailand doesn't, but the ICJ would still rule because it sees it as relevant and building on the case of the previous ICJ Prevahir case. The third scenario would be the ICJ not accepting it, and that would be, unfortunately, will leave some unclarity and possibility for clashes again, and that's something that I hope doesn't happen. But if it does, I think it's a separate discussion we will have. We'll have to have another day.
Okay. Before we end this discussion, do you have anything you think we haven't discussed or really important that you want to bring up?
For me, I think this conflict will leave a bitter taste for both sides, whether we want it or not. I already see that many people have already called on boycott of Thai products, to remember all of these things and whatnot. And I understand that feeling and frustration. And I do agree with some of it. Things like, for example, let's say consumptions of things that we can produce ourselves, we should, right? Even there was no such conflict, any things that we can do by ourselves, any things that we can strengthen, for example, healthcare system, consumer products or whatever. But I also don't believe in complete decoupling. In other words, I don't think it's pragmatic or that it's healthy that two countries that are next to each other will not talk to each other anymore, will not do trade, will not promote tourism, will not do cultural exchange. Those are the things that will not help us sustain peace as two neighboring countries. So instead, I still believe in the power of the youth and the next generation. It will not be easy after this conflict, but after some years, perhaps, I think that when the dust settles, we can try to promote more understanding and to see that conflict does not bring any prosperity. It only brings sufferings, it brings painful memories. And so anything we can do together to promote peace would be welcome, in my opinion. I'll give an example. I was actually quite pleased to see that prior to the conflict some years ago, we had collaboration between, for example, Vanda and Thai artists at the time, right? Those are powerful tools normally. I can write this book, but very few people would read it or would actually take my advice. But when we have artists that have millions of followers that can collaborate and promote message of peace, that actually has a lot more impact on the two countries. I know it's very difficult now. Now I think everyone is taking side, and rightly so. But I hope that we will be able to overcome that, and as two countries, we'll be able to live peacefully next to each other.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Tong. It's very sad actually to witness this conflicts happening to our country, and especially in 2025 already. So it's very sad, but let's hope for peace and let's stand for peace. Thank you.
Thank you.